I was sitting at my kitchen table on a Sunday morning when I saw the wedding photos. Not because anyone sent them to me. Not because I was there. I saw them on Facebook, posted by relatives I barely recognized anymore. All of them smiling in their formal clothes under string lights and flower arches strung across what looked like a vineyard estate. My stepson got married, and I wasn't invited. I stared at the screen for a long time. My coffee went cold in the mug beside my laptop. I could see Linda in the background of one photo, laughing with her arm around her son, wearing a navy dress I'd never seen before. She looked beautiful, happy, radiant, like nothing was missing from that day, like no one was missing. I scrolled through the album slowly, methodically. There were photos of the ceremony under a wooden arch wrapped in white roses. Photos of the reception with long tables covered in cream linens. Photos of toasts, of dancing, of the couple cutting a 3-tiered cake. I recognized Linda's brother in several shots. Her cousins from Ohio. Her aunt who I'd driven to the airport 3 times over the years. And there, near the head table, was Kevin's biological father, a man who hadn't contributed a single dollar to his son's upbringing in over 20 years. A man who'd walked away when Kevin was 3 and barely remembered his birthday most years. But not me. I had raised that boy. I didn't react right away. I didn't call Linda. I didn't leave an angry comment on any of the photos. I didn't send a text asking why. I just sat there at my kitchen table, feeling something I couldn't quite name. It wasn't rage. It wasn't even surprise, really. It was something quieter, something heavier. Something that settled into my chest like cold water and stayed there. I closed the laptop carefully. I walked outside onto the porch. I sat in the chair I'd repaired last summer and looked at the yard I'd mowed 2 days before and felt completely, utterly invisible. She was a single mother working 2 jobs, waitressing during the day, cleaning offices at night, trying desperately to keep her head above water. Kevin's biological father had left when the boy was 3, moved 2 states away, and mostly forgot he had a son. He sent a card on Christmas sometimes, occasionally called on Kevin's birthday. That was it. Linda did everything she could, but it wasn't enough. Not financially, not emotionally. She was drowning and she knew it. When we got serious, I didn't hesitate. I moved them into my house, a 3-bedroom ranch I'd bought years before. I paid off her car so she wouldn't lose it to repossession. I enrolled Kevin in a better school district. I bought him clothes that fit, school supplies, sports equipment when he wanted to try soccer, then basketball, then baseball. I went to his games. I sat through parent-teacher conferences. I helped with homework at the kitchen table. I taught him how to ride a bike without training wheels. I taught him how to change a tire. I taught him how to shake someone's hand firmly and look them in the eye. I never adopted him formally. Linda said it wasn't necessary. Kevin already had a father, even if that father was essentially absent. She didn't want to complicate things legally. She said it might hurt Kevin's feelings, make him feel like we were trying to erase his real dad. I didn't push it. I figured love didn't need paperwork. Kevin called me by my first name, Tom, not Dad, not even Pops or any variation, just Tom. I told myself I was fine with that. I told myself titles didn't matter. I told myself that being there was what counted. And I was there. I was there when Kevin learned to drive, and I let him practice in my car even though he scraped the bumper backing out of the driveway. I was there when he got rejected from his first-choice college and cried in his room, and I sat with him and told him it would be okay. I was there when he graduated high school, front row, camera in hand, cheering louder than anyone. I was there when he went to college, co-signing his student loans because his credit wasn't established, and his mother's was damaged. I was there when he graduated college, when he started his first real job, when he needed help with his resume, when his first serious relationship ended and he called me at midnight just to talk. When Kevin got engaged 2 years ago, I was one of the first people he told. He came over for dinner, brought his girlfriend Sarah, and announced it with a huge smile. I shook his hand. I hugged Sarah. I told him I was proud of him. He thanked me. He said he appreciated everything I'd done for him over the years. He said he wouldn't be where he was without my support. I believed him. But when the wedding invitations went out 6 months later, mine never came. Linda had been talking about the wedding constantly for months. She showed me photos of potential venues on her phone. She discussed catering options over dinner. She debated color schemes and flower arrangements and whether they should have a DJ or a band. I assumed I'd be involved in the planning. I assumed I'd be part of the day. I assumed I'd be standing there in a rented tuxedo when Kevin married the woman he loved, just like I'd been standing there for everything else that mattered in his life. But as the date got closer, I started noticing small things. Linda would get quiet when I asked about specific details. She'd change the subject. When I asked if I needed to rent a tuxedo, she said, "We'll talk about it later." When I asked what time the ceremony started, she said she wasn't sure yet. When I asked where they'd registered for gifts, she said she'd send me the link. She never did. 2 weeks before the wedding, I finally asked directly. We were eating dinner. Just the two of us. Chicken and rice. Normal weeknight meal. "Am I invited to the wedding?" I asked. Linda stopped with her fork halfway to her mouth. Her expression changed, became careful. Controlled. "Kevin wanted to keep it small," she said. "Small? Just immediate family." I felt something twist in my chest, something sharp and cold. "I've been in his life since he was 7 years old." "I know," she said softly. "I know you have. So what am I then?" "Tom, if I'm not immediate family after 18 years, what am I?" She set down her fork. "It's his day. He gets to decide who's there." "Did he say why?" She hesitated. I watched her choose her words. He feels like his biological father should be there. And he didn't want it to be awkward having both of you." I leaned back in my chair slowly. "So his father, who abandoned him and hasn't paid a dime of child support in 2 decades, gets to go, but I don't?" "Tom, I'm not arguing," I said quietly. "I just want to understand the logic." Linda looked down at her plate. Her eyes were shiny. "It's complicated. Explain it to me." "I can't. Can't or won't." She didn't answer. I pushed my plate away. I'd lost my appetite. "Okay," I said. "Okay. If that's what Kevin wants, then that's what Kevin wants." She looked at me like she was waiting for more, waiting for me to get angry maybe, to yell, to demand. But I didn't. I just stood up, put my plate in the sink, and went to my office. I closed the door. I sat at my desk in the dark, and I started thinking. She texted me updates throughout the days. How beautiful everything looked, how excited Kevin was, how emotional she felt seeing everything come together. She didn't ask how I was doing. She didn't acknowledge that I was sitting at home while she celebrated our family without me. I spent that weekend working in the yard. I mowed the lawn even though it didn't really need it. I trimmed the hedges. I fixed a leaking faucet in the guest bathroom. I reorganized the garage. I kept my hands busy so my mind wouldn't wander too much. It didn't work. I kept imagining them all there. Linda in her navy dress, Kevin in a tuxedo I'd never see, his father, a stranger who'd contributed nothing, walking him down the aisle or giving a toast or doing whatever fathers do at weddings. I imagined cousins and aunts and uncles I'd spent holidays with for nearly 2 decades, all of them wondering where I was, or worse, not wondering at all. When Linda came back Sunday night, she was glowing. She walked through the door with her overnight bag and immediately started pulling out her phone. "Tom, you should have seen it," she said. It was absolutely beautiful. The venue was perfect. The weather held. The ceremony was so moving. Kevin cried when he saw Sarah coming down the aisle. And the reception was incredible. The food, the music, everything. She showed me photos on her phone. The venue, the arch, the flowers, the cake. She scrolled through dozens of them, narrating each one. "This is Linda's brother giving his toast. This is the first dance. This is Kevin with his father. They haven't seen each other in years, Tom." It was really emotional. I looked at the photos. I nodded. I made appropriate sounds. "It looks beautiful," I said. She hugged me. "I'm so glad to be home," she said. That night I lay in bed beside her, listening to her breathe in the dark. She fell asleep quickly. I didn't sleep at all. The time his car broke down on the highway at 2 in the morning, and I drove an hour and a half to pick him up because he didn't have money for a tow truck. The time he needed money for a security deposit on his first apartment, and I wired him $1,200 without asking when he'd pay it back. The time he called me late at night because he was anxious about a job interview the next morning and just needed someone to talk to tell him he'd do fine. I thought about holidays. Every Thanksgiving, every Christmas, every Easter. Kevin at my table. Kevin opening presents I'd bought. Kevin eating food I'd helped pay for. I thought about how, when Kevin introduced me to his friends over the years, he'd say, "This is Tom, my mom's husband." Never my stepdad. Never my father figure. Never the man who raised me. Just Tom, my mom's husband. And I thought about how I'd always told myself that was fine. That titles didn't matter. That what we had was real, regardless of what he called me. That actions spoke louder than words. But sitting there in the dark, replaying 18 years of memories, I started to realize something. To Kevin, I had never been family. I had been a resource. A reliable source of money, advice, support, transportation, co-signatures, emotional labor. Someone who was there when needed. Someone who could be counted on to help. But not family. Not someone worth including in the most important day of his life. The realization didn't come like a lightning bolt. It came slowly, like water seeping through a crack, cold and steady and impossible to stop. I didn't sit Linda down for a dramatic confrontation. I didn't call Kevin and demand an apology. I didn't post anything on social media or vent to friends. I didn't make a scene. I just started noticing things, paying attention. Linda still talked about Kevin constantly. His new job, his marriage, his plans to buy a house. She'd show me text messages he sent her. She'd tell me stories about conversations they'd had. She'd laugh and say, "He's doing so well. I'm so proud of him." I'd nod. "That's good," I'd say. But I stopped asking follow-up questions. I stopped offering commentary. I stopped engaging beyond basic acknowledgement. Kevin called occasionally, usually because he needed something. Advice on a lease agreement, help understanding a complicated tax form, recommendations for a good mechanic. Linda would hand me the phone and say, "Tom knows about this stuff." I'd answer his questions. I'd keep it brief. Then I'd hang up. Linda started noticing. "You were short with Kevin on the phone," she said once. "Was I?" "He said you sounded distant." I shrugged. I was in the middle of something. She frowned but didn't push it. Linda and I had always kept things relatively separate. She had her checking and savings accounts. I had mine. We split household expenses down the middle. We'd agreed on that arrangement early on, and it had worked fine for years. But as I went through old records, I started adding things up. Kevin's college loans. My name was on them as the co-signer. I'd been making monthly payments for 6 years, $17,000 so far. Kevin's first car. I'd bought it outright when he turned 18, paid $8,000 in cash so he'd have reliable transportation to his campus job. The down payment on Kevin's first apartment, I'd given him $1,200. His textbooks throughout college, I'd bought most of them, probably another $2,000 over 4 years. Various emergencies over the years, car repairs, medical bills, surprise expenses, another few thousand. His wedding. I'd later find out from a credit card statement that Linda had contributed $10,000 to help cover costs. Money from her savings account. Savings I'd helped her build because I'd been covering most of our living expenses, most of our vacations, most of the home repairs and upgrades for years. I didn't feel angry looking at these numbers. I felt tired. Tired of being the bank. Tired of being the backup plan. Tired of being appreciated in private but invisible in public. I'd thought about adding her name several times over the years. She'd mentioned it once or twice, usually in the context of, "What if something happens to you?" I'd always said, "Yeah, we should take care of that." But we never did. I'm not sure why. Procrastination, maybe. Or some instinct I wasn't fully aware of. I sat there looking at that deed for a long time. Then I put it back in the folder. And I put the folder back in the drawer. But I didn't forget about it. Congratulations. I said. Thanks, we just found out last week. We're really excited. I'm sure you are. We've been talking about names already. If it's a boy, we're thinking about naming him after Sarah's dad. He passed away a few years ago. That's a nice tribute. Yeah, we thought so. There was a pause. Anyway, just wanted to let you know. I appreciate it. Okay. Well, I'll talk to you later. Sounds good. We hung up. Linda asked me later that evening why I seemed unenthusiastic about the baby news. I'm happy for them, I said. You don't sound happy. I'm tired, I said. Long day at work. She looked at me for a moment, then let it go. But I saw something in her eyes. Concern, maybe. Or suspicion. I just wanted to understand my options, understand where I stood legally. I found someone through a colleague, a family law attorney named Patricia, mid-50s, professional, no nonsense. I told her the situation, 18 years of marriage, my house, owned before the marriage, my retirement accounts, my savings. Linda had her own income. She worked full-time as an office manager, but nothing compared to what I'd accumulated over the years. If you were to divorce, Patricia said, she'd be entitled to a portion of marital assets. How much? Depends on several factors. In this state, typically it's a 50-50 split of anything acquired during the marriage. Your house is separate property since you owned it beforehand, but any equity increase during the marriage could potentially be considered marital property. I nodded slowly, taking this in. And if I stayed married? She raised an eyebrow. Then she's your spouse. She'd inherit everything if something happened to you. Unless you specify otherwise in a will. I don't have an updated will. Then you should create one, soon, especially given what you've told me about the family dynamics. I sat with that information for a moment. What would you recommend? I asked. She leaned back in her chair. That depends entirely on what you want. What does the future look like for you? Do you see this marriage continuing? Do you see it improving? I didn't have an answer. My retirement accounts, my investment portfolio, my house, my vehicles, everything had designated beneficiaries. Linda wasn't one of them. Instead, I named my sister in Colorado, my two nieces, a few charities I'd supported over the years, a local food bank, a scholarship fund, an animal rescue. I signed the documents in Patricia's office. You're sure about this? She asked. I'm sure. You understand this could create significant conflict if your wife finds out? I understand. She notarized the signature and filed the will properly. I felt something shift in my chest. Not relief exactly, more like clarity. I also made changes to my day-to-day finances. I stopped contributing more than my agreed share to the joint household account. I stopped offering to cover extra expenses. When Linda mentioned wanting to take a trip or buy something for the house or help Kevin with something, I'd say, I'm a little tight this month. She seemed surprised at first, but didn't question it directly. I started keeping meticulous records, every expense, every payment, every transaction. I wasn't planning anything specific. I just wanted to know exactly where I stood financially, where my money was going, what I was supporting. Knowledge felt like power. What does that mean? Nothing, I said. I just don't think I'm needed there. Kevin would want you there. Did he say that specifically? She hesitated. He asked if we were coming. We? Not me. Tom. I'm not going, I said. You should go. Have a good time. Send them my best. She looked at me for a long moment. Are you punishing him? No. Then what is this? I'm just not pretending anymore. Pretending what? That I'm part of something I was never actually part of. Her eyes filled with tears. That's not true. Linda, I wasn't invited to his wedding. His father was, but I wasn't. That tells me everything I need to know. He was trying to avoid drama. By excluding the person who raised him? She didn't have an answer for that. I didn't go to the baby shower. Linda went alone. She stayed with Kevin and Sarah for the entire weekend. She sent me photos, presents piled high, a cake decorated with storks, Sarah opening gifts while Kevin sat beside her looking proud. When Linda came back, she was quiet for days. Finally, over dinner one night, she said, "Kevin asked where you were. What did you tell him?" "That you were busy with work." "That's accurate enough." She set down her fork. "He's confused, Tom. He doesn't understand why you've pulled away." "Have I pulled away? Or have I just stopped chasing?" "What does that mean?" "It means I spent 18 years being there for him. And when it came time for him to be there for me, even just as a gesture, as a symbol, I wasn't worth it. The wedding wasn't about you." "I know," I said. "That's exactly the point." She didn't bring it up again. 7 pounds, 8 ounces. They named him after Sarah's father, just like Kevin had mentioned. Linda went to the hospital immediately. She stayed for a week, helping with everything, cooking meals, doing laundry, holding the baby while Sarah napped. She sent photos every day. I responded with short texts. "Beautiful. Glad everyone's healthy. Give them my best." When Linda came home, she looked exhausted. "You should come meet him," she said. "Kevin keeps asking about you." "Maybe soon." "Tom." I said maybe soon. She looked at me with something like desperation. "I don't understand what's happening to us." "Nothing's happening," I said. "Everything's just becoming clear." "Hey, Tom," he said. His voice sounded strained, uncertain. "Can we talk?" "We're talking now." "I mean, really talk." "About what?" "Mom says you've been distant, that you're upset about something." "I'm not upset." "Then what's going on?" I set down the wrench I'd been holding. "Kevin, I've spent a lot of years helping you, supporting you, being there when you needed something. I don't regret that. I did it because I cared about you, but I also don't expect anything in return anymore." "What does that mean?" "It means I understand my place now." "Your place?" "I'm your mother's husband. I'm not your father. I'm not your family. You made that very clear." There was a long silence on the other end. "I never said that," he finally said. "You didn't have to." "Tom, I appreciate everything you've done for me." "I know," I said. "But appreciation isn't the same as connection, and connection isn't the same as family. I get that now." "You're mad about the wedding." "I'm not mad, I'm just realistic. It wasn't personal. Not inviting someone who raised you to your wedding is the definition of personal. My dad wanted to be there. And I didn't?" He didn't know what to say to that. "Kevin, I'm not angry at you," I continued. "I'm really not. You made a choice about who you wanted at your wedding. That's your right. But choices have consequences, and the consequence of your choice is that I now understand exactly where I stand, and I'm living accordingly." "What does that mean?" "It means I'm not your backup plan anymore. It means you're an adult and you can handle your own life. It means I'm focusing on my own future, on people who actually see me as family." "Are you leaving my mom?" "That's between me and your mom. She's falling apart." "Then maybe you should support her, be there for her. Isn't that what family does?" He was quiet for a long time. "I didn't mean to hurt you," he finally said. "I believe that. But intent doesn't erase impact." "What do you want from me?" "Nothing," I said. "I don't want anything from you anymore. I think that's healthier for both of us." "Tom, I need to go. Take care of yourself, Kevin. Take care of your family." I hung up. My hand was shaking. She sat down heavily on the couch. "I thought you loved him." "I did. I do. But love doesn't mean accepting disrespect. Love doesn't mean pretending everything's fine when it's not. He's trying now because he's confused, not because he actually sees me differently. There's a difference." She started crying. I didn't comfort her. I just sat there. "What do you want, Tom?" she asked through tears. "I want to stop feeling invisible in my own life." "You're not invisible." "I wasn't at my stepson's wedding." I'm not in his life in any meaningful way. I'm not in your will, I'd bet. I'm not anyone's emergency contact. I'm just the guy who pays for things and helps when called. That's not a family. That's a transaction. That's not true, isn't it? She couldn't answer. Linda and I still lived together. We still shared the house, shared meals, slept in the same bed. But something fundamental had broken between us. Some thread that had held us together for 18 years had finally snapped. She stopped talking about Kevin around me. She visited him on her own. When she came back, she'd give me brief updates. Everyone's fine, or the baby's getting big, and nothing more. Kevin stopped calling entirely. I figured that was for the best. We were all finally being honest about what we were to each other. Nothing. My stomach tightened, but I didn't let it show on my face. And I'm not in it. No. Why? I pulled out a chair and sat down across from her. Because I don't trust that anything I leave behind would go where I want it to go. Her face crumpled. You think I'd give everything to Kevin. I think you'd do what you thought was right for your son. And what you think is right isn't what I think is right. Tom, I'm your wife. And Kevin is your son. I understand that. I've always understood that. But I need to protect what I've built. For people who actually consider me family. I consider you family. Do you? Because you watched your son exclude me from the most important day of his life and you didn't say a word. You didn't stand up for me. You didn't insist. You just let it happen. It wasn't my decision. You could have made it your decision. You could have said, Tom helped raise you. Tom will be there or I won't. But you didn't. Because Kevin matters more. She was crying openly now. That's not fair. Maybe not. But it's honest. She looked down at the will documents. So what happens now? I don't know, I said. That's up to you. Just space. I think we need time apart, she said. I need to figure out what I want. What's best for me? All right. She looked at me with something like shock. That's it? Just all right? What do you want me to say? I want you to fight for us. I looked at her across the kitchen we'd shared for 18 years. I've been fighting for us for 18 years, Linda. I'm tired. So you're just giving up? I'm accepting reality. She moved out 2 weeks later. She stayed with Kevin and Sarah initially, sleeping on their couch while she looked for her own place. After a month, she found a small apartment about 20 minutes from their house. She came back to pack her things on a Saturday. I helped her load boxes into her car. We were civil, polite, like strangers helping each other move. When her car was packed, she stood in the driveway looking at the house. I never thought it would end like this, she said. How did you think it would end? She didn't answer. She got in her car and drove away. The house felt bigger after she left, quieter. I didn't mind. Did I? Or did I just stop accepting less than I deserve? You've changed, Tom. You've become cold. Or maybe I just stopped pretending. Pretending what? That I was part of something I was never actually part of. That's not true. Kevin, answer me honestly. When you think about your family, do you think about me? Silence. When you picture holidays, important moments, the people who matter, am I in that picture? More silence. That's what I thought. It's not that simple. It is that simple. I was convenient. I was helpful. I was there when needed. But I was never truly part of your family, and that's fine. I accept that now. But it also means I need to build a life that reflects that reality. My mom loves you. Your mom loves you more, as she should. You're her son. But that means I'll always be secondary, and I can't live like that anymore. So you're just done with all of us? I'm done trying to earn a place I should have been given freely. He hung up without saying goodbye. I haven't heard from him since. I kept the house, my retirement accounts, my investments, the things that were mine before we married. The whole process took about 6 months. She moved closer to Kevin after everything was finalized, bought a small townhouse about 10 minutes from his place. From what I've heard through mutual acquaintances, we don't speak directly anymore. She helps with childcare several days a week. Kevin's family is doing well. The baby is healthy. They're talking about having another. I'm glad they're happy, I genuinely am. Smart, kind young women. They actually call me Uncle Tom. They send me cards on my birthday. They include me. I've also gotten more involved in my community. I volunteer at the food bank on Saturday mornings. I've joined a woodworking club. I play poker with a group of guys from work every other Thursday. I have a life that's mine. A life where I'm valued, where I'm included, where I'm not invisible. When I do, I don't feel anger. That burned out a long time ago. I don't even feel sadness, really. Mostly I feel distance. Like he's someone I used to know. Someone from a different life. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I'd been invited to that wedding. If that one gesture had been made. Would everything be different? Would we still be a family? Maybe. Or maybe the wedding was just the moment I finally saw what had always been true. That I was never really part of the family I thought I was building. She asked if I'd be willing to talk to him. Maybe meet for coffee. I read the message several times over the course of a week. I thought about what I'd say if I responded. I thought about what a meeting might look like. In the end, I wrote back, I appreciate you reaching out, and I appreciate that Kevin is working on himself. That's good. I don't have any anger toward him or your family. But I also don't see the point in reopening old wounds. That chapter of my life is closed. I hope Kevin continues to grow. I hope your family is healthy and happy. But I've moved on, and I think that's best for everyone. She wrote back thanking me for my honesty. I never heard from either of them again, but then I remember sitting at my kitchen table on that Sunday morning, looking at wedding photos on Facebook, seeing my wife and her son and all those relatives celebrating without me. And I remember that I wasn't harsh. I was just honest. I gave years of my life, I gave thousands of dollars. I gave emotional support and practical help and unconditional love. And when it came time for them to give me one thing, one simple gesture of inclusion, I wasn't worth it. So I stopped giving. Not out of spite, not out of revenge, out of self-respect. And I built a life without him. We're both fine. Maybe we're both exactly where we're supposed to be. And I've learned from them. I thought about that for a moment. I'm glad he's happy, I said, which was true. My colleague nodded, sensing there was more to the story, but polite enough not to press. Well, take care of yourself, Tom. You too. I drove home thinking about that conversation, about how I'd answered. I was glad Kevin was happy, but I wasn't proud. You can't be proud of someone who doesn't let you be part of their life. You can't be proud of someone who made you invisible. And that realization didn't hurt anymore, it just was. And by that definition, Kevin and Linda were never really my family. Not in the way that mattered. I converted it years ago. There are no remnants of his childhood left, no trophies or posters or memories, just my desk, my computer, my books. It's better this way. And maybe that's the most honest ending this story could have had. I don't regret raising him. I just regret thinking that raising him made me family. But I know better now. And that knowledge, painful as it was to gain, set me free. And freedom, I've learned, is worth more than all the gratitude in the world.